In the bustling town of Azura, where the sun dipped into the horizon and painted the sky with hues of crimson and gold, two young souls were inseparable. Kaiden, son of the humble housemaid, Aqua, and Zyphyrine, daughter of the wealthy and influential Lady Calantha, had grown up together, their bond strengthened by the passing years. Their days were filled with laughter and adventure, as they explored the rolling hills and dense forests surrounding Azura. Kaiden, with his untamed spirit and wild heart, was the perfect complement to Zyphyrine's gentle nature and curious mind. Together, they discovered hidden streams, chased after butterflies, and danced under the starry night sky. As they grew older, their friendship blossomed into something more. Kaiden's love for Zyphyrine deepened, and he vowed to make her his wife one day. He dreamed of building a life together, free from the shackles of societal expectations. But their social differences and Lady Calantha's disapproval threatened to tear them apart. Lady Calantha, a woman of refined taste and calculating ambition, had other plans for her daughter. She envisioned a union with a wealthy suitor, one that would secure their family's position and fortune. The thought of Zyphyrine marrying a nobody like Kaiden was unbearable. Aqua, Kaiden's mother, sensed the tension between the two families. She warned Kaiden of the dangers of loving someone from a different world. But he wouldn't listen. His heart belonged to Zyphyrine, and he was determined to make their love work. As the days turned into weeks, Kaiden and Zyphyrine's love continued to grow. They stole glances at each other during family gatherings, exchanged sweet whispers in the dead of night, and made plans for a future together. But fate had other plans. Lady Calantha's disdain for Kaiden intensified, and she began to plot a way to keep the young lovers apart. Little did they know, their love was about to face its greatest challenge. Kaiden's determination to make his love for Zyphyrine work only grew stronger with each passing day. He began to notice the little things about her, the way her eyes sparkled in the sunlight, the gentle curve of her smile, and the soft cadence of her voice. He knew that he wanted to spend the rest of his life making her happy, but reality had a way of intruding on dreams. Lady Calantha's disapproval was not the only obstacle they faced. Kaiden's own circumstances seemed to conspire against him. His mother, Aqua, worked tirelessly to provide for their family, but they barely scraped by. The house they lived in was small and worn, a far cry from the grandeur of Lady Calantha's estate. One day, as Kaiden walked Zyphyrine home from the market, they stumbled upon a group of wealthy young men lounging in the town square. They eyed Kaiden with disdain, their sneers and snickers making him feel like an outsider. Zyphyrine, sensing his discomfort, took his hand in hers, but even that gesture of solidarity couldn't shield him from the sting of their words. "You're not good enough for her," one of them sneered. "You're just a poor boy from the wrong side of town." Kaiden felt a surge of anger, but Zyphyrine's gentle squeeze of his hand stayed his temper. He knew that reacting would only fuel their cruelty. Instead, he stood tall, his eyes locked on Zyphyrines, and said, "I may not have wealth or status, but I have something they'll never have, Zyphyrines' heart." The young men laughed, but Zyphyrines' smile told Kaiden that he had said the right thing. As they continued their walk, Kaiden couldn't shake off the feeling that he was fighting an uphill battle. He knew that he needed to prove himself, to show Lady Calantha and the rest of the world that he was worthy of Zyphyrines' love. But how? Kaiden's desire to prove himself consumed him. He spent every waking moment thinking of ways to improve his circumstances, to show Zyphyrines' mother that he was worthy of her daughter's hand. He took on extra work, laboring in the fields from dawn till dusk, but no matter how hard he worked, he couldn't seem to escape the shadow of poverty. One day, as he trudged home, exhausted and defeated, he stumbled upon a mysterious figure lurking in the shadows. The figure beckoned him closer, its voice low and gravelly. "You're the one who loves Zyphyrine, aren't you?" it asked. Kaiden hesitated, unsure of what to say. "I can help you," the figure continued. "I can give you the wealth and status you need to win her mother's approval." Kaiden's heart skipped a beat. Could this be the answer to his prayers? But as he looked into the figure's eyes, he saw something that made his blood run cold. A glint of malevolence, a hint of darkness that seemed to seep into his very soul. "What do you want in return?" Kaiden asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The figure smiled, its lips curling up into a cruel grin. "Ah, my young friend," it said. "The price of success is always steeper than you think." Kaiden felt a shiver run down his spine. He knew that he was playing with fire, but his desire for Zyphyrine's love clouded his judgment. "I'll do it," he said, his voice firm. The figure nodded, its grin growing wider. "Then let us begin," it said. Kaiden followed the mysterious figure through winding alleys and dark forests, the moon casting eerie shadows on the ground. They arrived at a crumbling hut on the outskirts of town, smoke billowing from the chimney like a spectral presence. Inside, the hut was dimly lit, the air thick with the scent of herbs and something else, something acrid. The figure pushed Kaiden forward, and he stumbled into the heart of the hut. A woman sat in the shadows, her face hidden behind a veil of tattered lace. She beckoned Kaiden closer, her voice like a rusty gate. "So, you want to win Zyphyrines' hand," she croaked. "I can help you. But the price will be steep." Kaiden swallowed hard, his heart racing with anticipation. "I'll do anything," he said, his voice firm. The woman cackled, the sound sending shivers down Kaiden's spine. "Very well," she said. "I'll grant you wealth and status, but in return, you must give me something precious." Kaiden hesitated, unsure of what to say. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The woman's laughter grew louder, more maniacal. "First of all, I have to feed on your blood through your manhood. A few survive this, but you survive. Then all the riches of the earth will be yours." It was always said in the town how young men mysteriously disappeared, so now Kaiden knew how they disappeared. The price to pay shocked him, and he said, his voice shaking and stammering, But my manhood is for my beloved Zyphyrine and no one else. The old witch loved Everly. It's not only that, I want your memories," she said. "Your memories of Zyphyrine. Every kiss, every touch, every whispered promise. You'll forget it all, and in return, you'll be the man you need to be to win her hand." Kaiden felt a chill run down his spine. Could he really forget Zyphyrine? Forget the way she made him feel? But his desire for her love clouded his judgment. He nodded, his heart heavy with the weight of his decision. Kaiden left the witch's hut almost dead due to the harsh blood-sucking that almost killed him. And also memory erasing that led to severe head. He was almost dead, but love for Zyphyrine and the yearn for respect from Zyphyrine's mother Lady Calantha pushed him forward each past day for full 7 days. The witch dropped him on the road where villagers found him and alerted his mother. The mother had started losing hope since her son was lost for a full week that she thought he was dead. She rushed him to the hospital and was administered to be given more blood. When he woke up, the weight of his bargain settling heavy on his shoulders. He had traded his memories of Zyphyrine for a chance at wealth and status. But at what cost? As he walked, he felt a strange sensation, like a fog rolling in to obscure his mind. He tried to remember the way Zyphyrine's eyes sparkled in the sunlight, but the image was hazy, indistinct. Panic set in as he realized the true extent of the witch's curse. He had forgotten Zyphyrine, forgotten the way she made him feel, but his ambition drove him forward, refusing to let him falter. He threw himself into his work, using his newfound wealth and status to build a business empire. Years passed, and Kaiden became a respected figure in Azura, known for his cunning and ruthlessness. But deep down, a spark of his former self remained, a spark that refused to be extinguished. One day, as he gazed out over the city, he saw a figure that made his heart skip a beat. Zyphyrine, now a beautiful woman, stood in the market square, her eyes locked on his. For a moment, their gazes met, and Kaiden felt a jolt of recognition. But it was fleeting, lost in the fog of his forgotten memories. Zyphyrine, however, seemed to sense something, her eyes narrowing as she studied him. And then, in an instant, she vanished into the crowd. Kaiden was left standing alone, the spark within him growing stronger, refusing to be ignored. Kaiden couldn't shake off the feeling that Zyphyrine's gaze had ignited within him. It was as if a part of him, long dormant, had stirred to life. He felt an overwhelming urge to find her, to reconnect with the woman who had once been his everything. But how? His memories of her were shrouded in fog, lost to the witch's curse. Determined to find answers, Kaiden began to search for Zyphyrine, scouring the city for any sign of her. And then, one night, he received a cryptic message, inviting him to meet her at the old oak tree in the forest. Kaiden arrived, his heart pounding with anticipation. Zyphyrine stood before him, her eyes blazing with a fierce inner light. "You don't remember me, do you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Kaiden shook his head, feeling a pang of regret. "But I remember you," Zyphyrine continued. "I remember the way you used to make me laugh, the way you used to hold my hand. And I know why you've forgotten." Kaiden's eyes locked onto hers, his mind racing with questions. "The witch's curse," Zyphyrine said, her voice dripping with venom. "She took your memories, but I can help you get them back." Kaiden's heart leapt with hope. Could it be true? Could he really regain his memories of Zyphyrine? Zyphyrine led Kaiden deep into the forest, to a clearing surrounded by ancient trees. In the center of the clearing stood a glowing pool of water, its surface reflecting the stars above. "This is the pool of memories," Zyphyrine said, her voice filled with reverence. "It has the power to restore your memories, but you must be willing to face the past." Kaiden hesitated, unsure of what lay ahead. But his desire to remember Zyphyrine, to recall the love they once shared, drove him forward. He knelt beside the pool, gazing into its depths. The water began to ripple, images rising to the surface like whispers from the past. Kaiden saw himself and Zyphyrine, laughing and chasing each other through the forest. He saw their first kiss, under the stars, and their promises of forever, but the memories came at a cost. Kaiden felt the pain of their separation, the anguish of losing Zyphyrine. He felt the weight of his bargain with the witch, the sacrifice he had made for wealth and status. Zyphyrine's hand found his, her touch anchoring him to the present. "Remember," she whispered. "Remember us." Kaiden's eyes locked onto hers, his heart overflowing with emotion. He remembered. Kaiden's memories came flooding back, a tidal wave of emotions and images. He remembered his love for Zyphyrine, their laughter and tears, their promises and dreams, but with the memories came a harsh truth. He remembered his bargain with the witch, the price he had paid for wealth and status. He remembered the cost of his ambition. Zyphyrine eyes searched his, filled with a mix of hope and fear. "Do you remember everything?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Kaiden nodded, his heart heavy with regret. "I remember," he said. "I remember it all." Zyphyrine's face fell, her eyes welling up with tears. "Why did you do it?" she asked, her voice cracking. "Why did you trade our love for wealth and status?" Kaiden felt a pang of shame, his eyes dropping to the ground. "I was blinded by ambition," he said. "I thought it was the only way to prove myself worthy of you." Zyphyrine laughter was bitter. "Worthy of me," she repeated. "You were always worthy, Kaiden. You were always enough." Kaiden's eyes met hers, filled with a deep sorrow. "Can you ever forgive me?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Zyphyrine gaze searched his, her expression unreadable. And then, in an instant, she vanished into the trees, leaving Kaiden alone with his regret. Kaiden stood alone in the clearing, the weight of his regret crushing him. He had lost Zyphyrine, the love of his life, due to his own ambition. He thought of all the what-ifs, all the chances he had let slip away. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Kaiden wandered the land, a lost soul searching for redemption. He helped those in need, used his wealth and status to make amends for past wrongs, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't shake off the feeling of emptiness. He longed for Zyphyrine's forgiveness, for a second chance to prove his love. One day, as he walked through a bustling market, he heard a whisper in his ear. "Kaiden, I'm in danger." He spun around. But there was no one there. The voice was familiar, though, Zyphyrine. Without hesitation, Kaiden followed the sound of her voice, his heart pounding in his chest. He navigated through crowded streets and narrow alleys, the voice growing louder with each step. Finally, he arrived at a dilapidated mansion on the outskirts of town. Zyphyrine stood at the entrance, her eyes locked onto his. "Come in," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Kaiden followed her into the mansion, his senses on high alert. Inside, he found a group of shady figures, their eyes fixed on Zyphyrine with malice. "Who are these people?" Kaiden demanded, his fists clenched. Zephyrine's gaze met his. "They're the witch's minions," she said. "They've been hunting me for months." Kaiden's eyes narrowed. "Not anymore," he growled, ready to defend Zyphyrine at all costs. The minions snarled, advancing on them. Kaiden stood his ground, his fists flying as he fought to protect Zyphyrine. In the heat of the battle, their eyes met, and for a moment, Kaiden thought he saw a glimmer of forgiveness, but the fight was far from over. The minions were relentless, and Kaiden knew he had to end this once and for all. With a fierce cry, he launched himself at the attackers, determined to save Zyphyrine and redeem himself once and for all. Kaiden fought with every ounce of strength he possessed, his fists flying as he took down the minions one by one. Zyphyrine joined the fray, her own skills honed from years of living on the run. Together, they fought in perfect sync, their movements a testament to their love and trust in each other. The minions were relentless, but Kaiden and Zyphyrine were unstoppable. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the last minion fell to the ground. Kaiden and Zyphyrine stood victorious, their chests heaving with exhaustion, but their relief was short-lived. The witch appeared, her eyes blazing with fury. "You fools," she spat. "You think you can defeat me? I have the power of the Ancient Ones on my side." Kaiden and Zyphyrine stood tall, united against the witch's wrath. "We have something you don't," Kaiden said, his voice firm. "We have love," the witch sneered. "Love is weakness," she snarled, but Kaiden and Zyphyrine knew the truth. Their love was their strength, their power. And with that power, they confronted the witch. The battle was fierce, the outcome far from certain. But in the end, it was Kaiden and Zyphyrine's love that triumphed. The witch let out a defeated scream as she dissipated into nothingness. Kaiden and Zyphyrine stood victorious, their love shining brighter than ever. They embraced, their hearts full of joy and relief. "I'm sorry," Kaiden whispered, his voice trembling with emotion. Zyphyrines gaze met his. "I forgive you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Kaiden's eyes welled up with tears as he pulled Zyphyrine closer. "I promise to never let you go again," he vowed. Zyphyrine smiled, her eyes shining with happiness. "I promise to never let you go either," she said. And with that, they sealed their love forever.